This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Phil Soussan. He's an American bassist, singer, and songwriter. He's had solo albums, but also is very known for a lot of his work with Billy Idol, Ozzy, Vince Neil, Toto, many others. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting because I have followed a lot of the work that you did when you were with Ozzy Osbourne. Obviously, Ultimate Sin, to me, one of the best albums associated with Ozzy. That song, Shot in the Dark, every time it comes on, I literally, I could see where I was. I'm sure many fans tell you that. They can see where they were when it came out and the people they were hanging out with. And I'm a chick from the 80s, so that was really my time, when that was all happening.
Yeah, it was very much a sort of bookmark type moment. It was a bit of a milestone song for me too as well. It just seems that anytime people hear that song, they're sort of taken back to that moment in time. And most importantly, not just the song, but what they were doing at the time, the kind of concerts they were going to, how they were dressing, the company that they were keeping, and the events that they were doing. And I think that's really a test to what I consider to be a successful song, because it represents something to people beyond just the song. It represents the era. It represents the time. So for those reasons, I think it's very special, and I'll always take that as very much as a compliment. So thank you. It was just over 10 years ago, I was approached by David Lynch. I knew him through his daughter, Jennifer Lynch, as I had been doing work on one of her movies as a music editor. And he introduced me to this whole TM foundation that he had put together. And they were looking for artists to participate. And one of the things, they had some great people on there, Donovan, lots of big, big names. And he asked me if I would want to be included. And I said, absolutely. And I thought of doing my own cover version of Shot in the Dark and donating it. So it came out on an album called Download for Good with, 30 other artists. We raised a lot of money. We helped people who were troubled teens. We helped people who had PTSD, whether it was soldiers, people who had found themselves on the wrong side of the law, even people at schools who were having a hard time trying to study. What that did was it helped them learn TM, and it was remarkably successful. It did incredible good. So anyway, I did this version of Shot in the Dark. I recorded my own version of it, and it was really cool. I played everything on it, and I remember using the drum part that Randy Castillo used to play on the road after we'd recorded it. And it's, I love it. There's another cool thing as well, the guitar solo. I was going to match what Jake's solo was, but my friend Luis Maldonado said, I want to play solo on this, and he wanted to do it slightly different. I said, okay, well, let's see how it comes out. He played it slightly different, and it's fantastic. Luis is, of course, today the singer in Foreigner. But we're old friends. We've worked together. He's an amazing guitar player, amazing singer, amazing performer. He plays everything. So anyway, this was my long-winded story about how I came up with my own version of Shot in the Dark.
Yes, we're going to play A Shot in the Dark now.
Shot in the dark, always clear. shouting, look one step away from you.
You know, it's interesting because I've listened to other interviews that you've done and I've read a lot about you. And I have a lot of respect for you because often you kind of describe how you had to step away because you didn't get the actual agreement that you wanted. And I have a lot of respect for that, you know, because you actually know exactly how you are as a person and what your value is, and all of the hard work and all the creativity that's kind of wrapped around you being Phil. So when I heard you say that in multiple interviews, I was like, that's so perfect for someone to be able to actually kind of in their own way tell the world, I know who I am.
It's partly that, and I think it's also partly that a very difficult question for people to ask themselves in all walks of life is we get into the pattern of doing something, whether it's working, whether it's making money, whether it's whatever it happens to be. But it's very seldom that people stop and ask themselves, what's the end game here? You know, what am I trying to do? If I'm just going to work and I'm getting up and I'm going to work and I'm getting up and I'm getting to work, that might be great. That might be something that you just love doing. You love your work and that's fine. But if you're just doing it just for a purpose of getting to the next day or purpose of just making money, maybe you're just kicking the can down the road. If there's something fundamentally that you want to do, you have to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, in my case, it was great playing with people, but I had two motivations that I really wanted. Number one, I always wanted to be part of a band. I think, first of all, not just, I mean, I was part of the Ozzy Osbourne band, of course, and I was very grateful for that. But it really was the Ozzy Osbourne band, whoever happens to be playing in the band at the time. That was one thing. And then the other thing I think was that, I've always had this desire to want to, I write a lot of songs. I write a ton of songs. And I've always had this desire to want to be able to perform those songs and perform those songs for people. If I could do it within a band, that's great too. But when I was working with Ozzy, I got to a point where literally I'd had a great deal of success and had a wonderful time doing it. I was very grateful to Ozzy and for the opportunity. Very, very special time in my life. That goes without saying. But then it got to a point where, yeah, I wanted to stay in the band. I didn't really want to move on. And I wanted to keep contributing and writing songs. But I also had to have a deal that I was happy with. And I don't think that's unreasonable. Everyone has that deal. I wasn't, expecting anything crazy, but I just wanted to be able to make sure that I felt good about it. And I just wasn't able to cut that deal. I tried it for a while. And at the same time, Billy Idol was over here going, hey, you want to do this? You want to put something together? And I thought maybe it's time to do something different. I've done that. If I was going to do the same thing all over again, maybe it's time to move on. No disrespect to Ozzy, none whatsoever. It's just I went on and did my thing, and he doesn't need me. He certainly had his own reputation and continues to have his own reputation. So yeah, it was just a timing thing. And I went on to work with many, many artists after then.
Yes, I looked at the list and it was just like, my mind was blown. I was just like, let's talk about Billy Idol, first of all, because he's another one of my favorites. But I had heard that you, at the time of leaving Ozzy, that you had worked on so much material that you literally were planning to do like a second album with Ozzy, but then taking that material and moving on. So did you bring that to Billy, or where did you fit in those other songs?
No, not really. I mean, yes, that was true. I had spent a lot of time writing. After we finished The Ultimate Sin and went home, I set up a little recording studio set up over in Sharon's office in London. And I would go in there every day and just work on material. And so I'd gotten a lot of material together. And then when we came out to LA, I mean, it wasn't like I'd written, the whole album or anything. I had some really great ideas that, in my view, we would get together and we would probably develop, and we'd spend some time working on those. In the business of music, just to explain to your listeners, I mean, you have something called publishing, which is the rights to your music. You get royalties from these things, and small amounts of money, but over many, many years, that becomes, for want of a better word, your pension, right? And I wanted to retain some of my rights for this, and it was presented to me that was probably not going to be possible. In other words, I was going to have to relinquish all of those. And I wanted to hang on to a little bit of it. And that was where I was, sort of, want of a better word, a red line. And once I realized I was going to have to relinquish all of my publishing, I just said, well, maybe it's time to move on. That's all. And so I did move on. I did take those songs. I did not play them for Billy. I don't think they were really what we were doing, although we started working straight away on new material. They came up a long time after, actually, in Vince Neil's first solo album, those ideas came up. And that's why a lot of those songs on that album were songs that originally I had been working on for Ozzy.
Yes, I find it so interesting, the concept of songwriting. How does it come to you? Like when you were very young, did you realize that you were into poetry or writing, or did you always feel like you had the lyrics rolling around in your head, or was it more of a music thing, that you could actually hear the notes versus working on lyrics?
Well, you're bringing up a subject which is to do with the sort of spirituality of writing and what goes through your mind and what goes through your psyche, I suppose. Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not one or the other. Sometimes it's both. From a very, very young age, I loved music. I heard music at home. My mom had the radio on all the time, and I'd be listening to, in the 60s. It was all British 60s music, everything from the Beatles to you name it. And then as soon as I started having my own preference for music, it tended to be David Bowie. It was early glam rock. It was, on the one hand, it was Mott the Hoople. It was all of these bands. And slightly on the other hand was more of the kind of classic rock, blues rock artists and bands. It was Free, which later became Bad Company. So all of these things were going around in my head. I was actually thinking about it today because I was doing some yard work, and I was just sort of mentally humming this piece of music. And it was something that I heard, like a famous song or something. And I was like, man, I can't get this out of my head. And it's not my song, it was someone else's song. But I remember being a kid, and sometimes that would happen to me all the time. I'd have something just going round and round and round and round in my head. And it was almost like there was no volume control, turn this off. I would hear like a little hook, and I would go. And I think that's where I kind of developed the idea of what a hook is. It's something which is so memorable, and it's something that is so accessible that, a bus driver can whistle it. No disrespect to bus driver, because they're excellent whistlers, but a bus driver could whistle it. Anyone could do it. Anyone could, it would relate to people. I also played instruments from a very young age, and childhood instruments, until I was, probably 10 years old. And then I started playing classical violin, and I played that for a long time. So my background was in classical music. And then it was when I was, 11, 12, I started messing around with guitars, and the rest is history. Lyrically, it's very interesting because as a kid, we used to have our comic books. And if you grew up in England, you knew there was the Beano, there was Core, there was all these comic books that were very famous. And one day I relinquished my subscriptions to all of them for a magazine that would come out once a month that was called Words. And Words was a really cool magazine. You opened it up and it had all the top 30 songs on the charts with all the lyrics. And all I would do is read these lyrics, and I sort of memorized them, and I'd read them, and I was just fascinated with lyrics. And so I was doing that when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old even maybe. And back then we didn't have a Walkman, and you didn't have an iPhone, and you didn't have Spotify. You had a little radio, a little AM radio, and you would sit there for hours waiting for particular songs to come on that you could hear them. And so you just had to wait for that song to come on. I would want to know all the lyrics to all the songs. And that's really what I spent a lot of time doing. So I think it was a bit of both. A lot of the music, a lot of the lyrics. And then one day you start to write your own stuff. Do you write music first or lyrics first? The answer is yes. I mean, both. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's lyrics. Sometimes you get lyric ideas that you write down that are inspiring to you. And then when you're writing some music, you say, oh my gosh, these lyrics would fit really well. And then you start working it up together. That's sort of how it happens.
Wow. Well, I love that though, because you're really consciously aware of how it still happens for you. You've been at this a long time, but the process really hasn't changed. You kind of had it as a young boy, and that same process really stuck with you along the same way, which sounds good.
It's frustrating too, because sometimes, if you're just not inspired, sometimes you're not inspired, and that can be very frustrating. And then when you do get the inspiration, it just comes all in one go. And when you've finished a song, there's a feeling you get that is indescribable. I mean, it really is like an elation. It's really cathartic. You know, you feel just on top of the world. It's a really, really great thing. So that makes it all worthwhile.
Wow, this brings us to the conversation that we were speaking about earlier. But I wanted to speak about your first solo album, the album that you would have done, by yourself. So tell us when that came out and what was your inspiration to kind of put out your own work?
Well, always when I had been working with all these bands, there were always some songs that I've been writing that were not maybe going to be used by those bands. They maybe weren't appropriate or they weren't in the style of whatever. And I would always put them to the side and say, well, one day, I'll put these on a record. So that first album that you're talking about is an album called Vibrate. And it was really an aggregation of songs that was written over a long period of time. It was a cool album for me because I got some of my favorite people to guest on it and play on it. There were some fantastic players on this. Drums of Simon Phillips and Greg Bissonette, and guitars were like Steve Lukather and Shane Fontaine, and lots of people that I admire. Steve Porcaro played some keyboards on it, and it was just like an opportunity to really cast. It's like casting a movie or something, or a TV show. You're casting with your favorite actors. Here I was casting those songs with my favorite musicians, and had a blast making that record. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was that first record. That's how that came together.
So another song I wanted to bring up is called No Protection. So tell me more about that.
So No Protection came off my second solo album. And the difference between my second solo album and my first one was that the first one, as I said, was a collection of songs that were written over a long period of time. No Protection, the second album, was all written in one go. It was like a moment in time for me. I'd had a fairly sobering experience of losing a parent at that time. It wasn't directly about that, but it was all of a sudden, it was like a snapshot. You stop for a moment, you go, hang on a second, let's look around. Where am I? Where do I live? What have I done? What's in the past? What's in the future? It's just like an evaluation. Really, the title, No Protection, has nothing to do with condoms. It has nothing to do with anything of the sort. It's to do with the fact that none of us have any protection from the movement of time. As John Lennon, of course, said, life is what happens while making other plans, right? Time goes on. We don't have any protection against that. We have to go along with it. That's life. And so really it was a bit of a snapshot. So I was looking at lots of different aspects of what was around me and sort of putting them into thoughts and into songs. And that's what the whole record is about. And so the opening track is really about what I just described. It's that moment where you realize, oh my gosh, we're all mortal. That's it.
Yes, and it's so interesting when you reflect on losing a parent because that is your first experience of having protection. Your parent would be kind of like a representation of protection. So losing that is almost a feeling of losing that protection that you were kind of born into.
Yeah, and as well, I mean that first track was also somewhat inspired by my friendship with Randy Castillo, who passed away. Randy was the drummer in Ozzy, and Randy was also probably my lifelong closest friend, and he had passed away a short while earlier, maybe quite a few years before, from a terrible battle with cancer. So that also inspired that song as well. That was the thought of, hold on, we're all going to live forever, right? So, and then one day you realize that's not the case. That's not how it works out. But of course, losing my dad as well, I think that really forced me to kind of just stop and say, okay, let's have a look around and evaluate everything. Not criticize it, not nothing. Just let's take a snapshot here. Let's see where let's put a marker down here.
I'm glad you mentioned Randy because I had heard you speak about him before in the past. And one common thread that I remember you hearing, listening to you say, was that you and Randy would sit outside a venue. And it was just being like in his company. And that's kind of where the friendship kind of grew. That it was always like when you guys were at a venue, you would sit outside.
We became friends long before we played together in Ozzy. I was good friends with Lita Ford. They were living in London. That's how I met. We just hit it off and became friends back then. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 3 years later or so that we ended up playing together in Ozzy, which was amazing. it's great being in that band being in any band with your best friend. And we were inseparable. What Sharon called us the Righteous Brothers. Days off, we would hang out together. Work days, we'd hang out together. We were always together. And then after I left the band, he was kind of upset when I left the band. He was like, I don't know if he didn't get it or he got it or whatever, but I had my reasons to say, look, I just want to really try to investigate something more. And he took that a little personally, like I was leaving the band and I should really stay there because we were friends. And I appreciated that, but we stayed friends. We stayed friends for years and years after. We always worked together on projects and we always did things. We had a production company at one time. So we did a lot of things together. He was a great guy. Stuff of his all over the place. It's one of his paintings up here. There's a thing over there, which is executive order from the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they have Randy Castillo Day, which is the official executive order hanging on here. And, I don't think there's a day goes past that I don't really have some kind of mental conversation with him. So
That's beautiful. Beautiful memory. We're going to play No Protection now.
When days were young, stretched out like skin beneath the sun, and the heat beat upon like a drum. No protection, and we were on top of the world. Bravery sweat like virility flowed on a tightrope up highway road. No protection, and fear, well, fear's just a word, something they mention or something you heard, but fear may cause you to fall. No protection. So we were immune to the word. Resisted as diamond, eternity's pearl, negotiating every curve. No protection. And we were exceptional. And when we ruled the world, we were sensational. So when did we become
You know, it's interesting. Earlier, you and I spoke, and I was reflecting on so many collaborations that you've done over the years, from Vinny Appice, Julian Turner. I mean, even George Lynch. I mean, there's so many people that, in any one of your bios are listed. Which one of these guys would you kind of pick out to say, like, they really surprised you, or maybe they gave you something in your music that you weren't expecting, almost like a surprise that either changed your outlook on life or changed your way of doing music? Because I often find that. I found that in the military. I had this preconceived idea of someone, and then when I actually got to work with them, I was like, oh, wow, it's like a pleasant surprise. They're really a cool person, and in my mind, I had them conjured up to be something else. So,
Yeah, I mean, I've been very blessed and very fortunate to have played with some remarkable people. Every single person I've played with has been remarkable. Sometimes I had to pinch myself, whether it was Ozzy, whether it was Billy, whether it was people I worked with around then. I mean, the first time I played with Jimmy Page was incredible. I mean, every single person has brought something to my private banquet of my inspiration. It's like, I think playing with Steve Lukather was remarkable because Steve was an incredible musician, is an incredible musician. It was an education, I think. We had a band with Brett Tuggle, who sadly is no longer with us, Greg Bissonette, Steve, and myself. Playing in that band, I mean, Greg and I would go out for lunch and we'd be talking about technical stuff, drumming stuff, polyrhythms, and it was almost like a bit of a learning experience. And that night we'd try some of this stuff out in a concert. So every day we would do this. I think I really learned so much about my craft playing with Steve and Greg. That was remarkable. I learned a lot about how you connect with an audience playing with John Waite. John Waite is an amazing frontman, amazing singer. He just has a way of, through his phrasing, you watch an audience, they're just magnetized, they're just drawn right in. And it's like, how do you do that? And it's not done with any theatrics, and it's not done with any stage effects or something. It's simply done by communicating through phrasing, through the music, through what you're singing. And I would spend more time watching him than when I was playing, and just learning. So everyone I've worked with has brought something incredible to the experience table. I'm very much in awe of all these people I've worked with. I feel very honored to have worked with them.
yes, well, I'm sure they feel the same about you because you're also a tremendous musician. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you are. When you mentioned John Waite, I have seen him live many times. There is something about him. He'll start talking about the cafe and how he started to write the song. And, all of a sudden he's telling the story and then he just goes into playing it. There's just something about him. It's just a unique vibration. Yeah.
Yeah, that to me was always the thing about music, is the way that music has a way to connect with people. Whatever style it is, it just connects with people, and making that connection. I think that's really the thing that I find most exciting about music. I mean, I love playing a crazy show and everything, but at the heart of it, you have to connect with your audience. And really, it's all about the audience. I don't understand people who don't get it, but it's all about the audience. If there was no audience, there's the artist, there's the audience, and there's a song that connects the two together. That's how it works. And so we do this for our audience. And when an audience loves what we do and connects to it, and then you put into it all the pyrotechnics and the stage antics and the lighting and everything else, the excitement that goes with the show, I think that's what creates the magic. I might be wrong about this, but I really believe that's what it is.
Well, so many musicians have said the same. If
The
it
audience.
wasn't for the audience, they wouldn't have a stage to stand on, because it's through the support of the audience to keep the music going, album after album.
That's exactly what it is. And I think we should never lose sight of that. I'm very grateful to our fans. I mean, we have some of the best fans in the world. It's great always seeing the same people again, see the same faces. There's a familiarity. It's like, oh yeah, we're old friends. So great to see you again.
Yes, you have a following. Very good. I wanted to mention another song, Fly.
Fly Again.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah, Fly Again.
Fly Again. Yeah.
That was actually a song that was not on those albums. It will be on my upcoming album, but it was written about 2 years ago. And it's just a really beautiful message. I think it's just a message of encouragement. or someone who needs encouragement and then they've succeeded. They needed some help and then it's worked and they've managed to move on. Anyone could relate to it because anytime you try to help a friend out and it works out, it's somehow brings more meaning and feeling to yourself. To me, the meaning of life is making a difference to someone else's life. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So we can do lots and lots of really cool things for ourselves. That's kind of selfish. But when we do something really cool for someone else, I think that's where you walk away and you say, you know what, I feel better than I've ever felt because I helped somebody. And so that's what the song is about. It's about helping. Without any specifics, I think it's generally about, you got a friend that needs some help, take a bit of time out of your day, help them out. They'll be very grateful and you'll be incredibly happy. So
Yes, yes, I understand that. You know, it's also interesting something you said in there, tucked in there, is doing for someone else almost makes you feel better. A lot of times people in friendships say, I'm really glad you hung in there with me because, you know, when times are tough, that's the proof in the pudding that you're really a good friend and that you hang in with someone who's going through a rough patch because it's easy to walk away or it's easy to say, call me when things are better. But the true friend walks the path with someone.
yeah, and as I say, there's no greater spiritual reward, good feeling, catharsis that you get by helping somebody else out. You know, if you help someone else out, you help them out, but it comes back to you in a huge way. You just feel great. You feel like you've done something spectacular. You know, I wish more people would think along those lines.
I agree. Well, we're going to play Fly Again now.
It's a fool's game, that's what they say when you pick someone before yourself. But there's a feeling
Before we play the last song, I wanted to have you mention your upcoming album that is planned to be released. So give us, all of the little goodies about that because your fans will be looking for that.
So yeah, I started writing this album about a year ago. Last in Line was taking a hiatus, as I'm sure everyone knows. So we took some time off, and during that time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I pondered a few different things. Maybe I'd go out with a band short term, but nothing was really out there that I wanted to do. And then I thought, well, let me take some time and write some stuff for myself. The last few years playing with Last in Line has been about creating those albums as a band, which has been fantastic. But it means that I hadn't really done much songwriting of my own for a while. So I thought, well, maybe I'll take some time and do this. And after the second song came together, all of a sudden I got onto a roll and wrote, I forget, 15 or 16 songs. And I record them while I'm doing them. That was the way I was writing them. I was writing them on my own. So I'm recording a part to see if this works. I've got a guitar and then try a bass part against it and then say, no, let's change the guitar part. So I change the guitar part. And in that process, once I've got the song how I want it to sound, well, guess what? It's recorded. So I don't need to re-record it. And that's how I did these songs. I don't know. I threw them out like I normally do, passed them around. And 2 labels were interested. I was very pleasantly surprised. And one of the labels said, we really want to work with you on this. And it was Brave Words Records. So we signed a deal together. We're going to release this, but it is going to be released not as one album, but as 3 EPs. So it's going to be like a trilogy. I hope the first one comes out in September. Right now, I just finished a video for a first single. I've just been working on artwork, all the things that you have to do for releasing an album. As your listeners may or may not know, there's an awful lot of material that has to be prepared, so that you have all the assets in place, and then you can release it, and then it's all there. So that's what I've been doing. I mean, today I'm just doing some final mastering on the first 4 songs, making sure that they sound exactly perfect how I want them to sound. So yeah, so that's what's going on my new record. It's very exciting.
It sounds exciting. How does it stray from your first 2 albums? Does it have its own identity, own sound?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is, my first albums I didn't really for myself. They were just really recorded. I wanted to put songs. I didn't really publicize those albums. Although the second one was signed to Favored Nations, which was Steve Vai's label, but I didn't really promote it. There was other things going on at the time, and I just really wanted to put them out there. This is more of a legitimate band. I've put a band together that's really fantastic. There's a pretty modern, hard edge that goes through all these songs. They still have a lot of commerciality to them, but they're much, much tougher. I think people who know my work with Ozzy or Last in Line will relate more to these because of the kind of harder edge that they have. And it was fun doing something like this as well.
Very exciting. So tell us about your social media, if you have any websites, how people can reach out and stay in touch so we can see this upcoming album.
So Instagram is Phil Soussan, just my name, all is one word. Bands in Town is pretty important for me as well. Find me on Bands in Town just by looking for my name. Websites, I do have a website. I don't think I've maintained it in a while. No one maintains their websites anymore, do they? I mean, it's kind of cool.
I put all the radio shows on.
Okay, so my website is philsoussan.com. And if you go on there, some of the historical stuff is pretty cool. Like it's got all the records I've played on, although I do have to update it. There's been a bunch of projects. We talked about Carmine Appice as opposed to Vinny Appice, because as we know, we are 2 brothers.
That is correct. I've gotten
separated
schooled.
by a common surname.
That's right.
Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff with Carmine over the last 2 years. We've done at least 5 projects together. I love playing with both those guys. They're both very different, but I love playing with them. Yeah, I have to update it. So that's my website. And I'm sure that we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with Brave Words. They've got a fantastic media team as well. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out. But those are probably the easiest ways of finding me.
Very good. Well, thank you to Michael Brandvold, who has set up this interview and introduced us. We're going to roll out the interview with the last song, Water's Edge. Do you want to tell us about Water's Edge?
Water's Edge is a song about someone going through a really hard time. It could be anybody just going through a really hard time. It's about realizing that it's It's all in the way they feel, and it's all in the way they think. And you can turn a bad time around. You can rise up above it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very inspired after meeting you because you really are a very soulful person. And I look forward to your upcoming album. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
Yes.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Thank you again for doing the interview. And we're going to roll out with Water's Edge.
Is it cold at the water's edge? You're feeling like you can't go back to what you left behind. All these tribulations left you reeling in the water's deep. The answers will you find? But you think you should know by now how the fabric of your life should intertwine. And what you think is real revealed to be a play on what you find. Illusion by design.
You have been listening to Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium, Dream Central Station, LLC. My audio editor is Al Hemberger at the Loft Recording Studios in Bronxville, New York. This is WNEW 102.7 FM radio.